new episode of Talking From. I am joined today with my co host Kinte, and we are going to recap season three. A lot went on in season three, and 1,000 apologies for not breaking down episode by episode. Maybe we'll do that at a later time, but at least let's talk the general feeling and vibe of season three because boy, it was a ride from start to finish. So, without further ado, let me introduce Kinte. Kinte, how are you? Also, it's been a hot minute, so how are you?
I'm doing great. I apologize to the audience because I've had people be like, "I thought you did a podcast about From," and I'm like, I know, it's my fault." But you know what? I We're here and we're gonna talk the overall season, and I'm season three, and I'm very looking forward to that, and also I'm looking forward to the show going forward.
Yeah, me too. We know that it's been renewed for at least another season. Um,
Mhm.
and I, I'm not sure what you heard, but what I heard was they basically made this to be a 4 or 5 season run. That like there isn't not that there couldn't be more story to tell, but that the entire start to finish really had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'm wondering, what do you think about that?
I love it because this is not, to me, this isn't like Law and Order or something where, theoretically Law and Order could go on forever. There's no reason to stop. I feel like From or shows like it, they do have a shelf life. And when you start going outside of that shelf life, that's when, you start getting these really bad seasons. So I'm good with that.
It sounds to me uh like the idea here is a fifth and sort of that's the final season. I guess we'll have to see how season 4 does, but I do know that season 3, partly thanks to Amazon really pushing it
Hmm.
on their page, it actually did better ratings wise than either season 1 or season 2. So
Amen.
that's good news. And going forward, that seems like that could be a good reason that we could get a final fifth season. But season 4 is now expected to shoot in 2025, at the beginning of 2025. So that's good. And potentially we'll see a release date in 2026. So we've got a while to wait. We've got plenty of time to go over episode by episode if should we choose to. Lots of, time to fill in the gaps.
Did you
Maybe
see the video of Harold Perrineau when he found out about the renewal?
no.
Yeah, there's a video on YouTube where um they, oh my god, it's been a while, but it's really cool. And where when he finds out that they renewed it, like it's like a video of him in that moment finding out.
Was he excited?
Yeah, extremely sad because he's a producer on it as well as the lead. So
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and this is sadly, this is probably the biggest role he's ever had in something where he like is the straw that stirs the drink. So
Hmm.
you would think someone who's had such an illustrious career would have had more, um, starring platforms. But hey, this is really good. So hopefully he gets more of that because he's definitely a fantastic actor who has a lot of range.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's a lot of breakout quote unquote stars happening here. Um
Hmm.
and we'll sort of get into that as we get into what happened to these characters during the season, but I wanted to get your honest opinion on how you thought season 3, let's just say without any spoilers, let's just say from the beginning to the end, how do you think season 3 fit into the expectations that you had knowing what happened with season 1 and season 2?
Well, I have to say this, and some of it I think fans of From may not be happy, but for overall, this is my take on season three. Season two had a terrific season finale. And I mean, it kind of, there was that period where you're just like, oh man, I can't wait until you know, season 2, you know?
Because of the lighthouse and the she wakes up in the hospital and yeah, all of those things.
Yeah. So I was definitely on board. And then season season 3 starts. And that premiere, me personally, and we can disagree, I think that was the best written episode of all the episodes, was the season 3 premiere. What I mean by that is there are really good episodes, right? I felt like that episode was so well done, where there wasn't a moment that didn't matter. If you go back
Mm,
and watch that, almost every line of dialogue, it was the tightest, I thought, episode, and it had a great, I thought the build up to where we ended up was so well done. I remember, I think I told you that too, that I felt like it was the best episode of
yeah,
the series, was the season 3 premiere
premiere.
episode. And it was heartbreaking too, the way that it ended. I thought it was great. And then I felt like, see, the next couple of episodes were, the next episode was solid, and whatnot. And but then I felt like in the middle of the season it did drag. It for me it dragged, and there were some things I didn't care for, whatnot. But then I think it made up for it in the last three, about the last 3 episodes, definitely made up for it, and it ended on a very high note. So with that being said, um, I would say that I mostly enjoyed season 3, but I did feel like some of the middle episodes I wasn't as into as other episodes. So, that, just being honest about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have okay, one, I agree with you with
Mhm.
the I think season three's premiere was the best episode of all three seasons. And, so far they did the best job with it. Um, the writing is so solid right now, which I love. Um, I think that overall, season three is a jump in both sort of presentation about the characters and a little bit of setting ambiguity. That is, we're beginning to learn that there's something far bigger at work here, and what we originally believed was happening is not really what's happening. And part of that was established in the season 3 premiere, because they didn't kill Boyd. He was not only alive, but they were trying to terrorize him. And that to me felt like a huge jump,
Big
because
jump.
what I mean, like, I was really shocked. What is going on? But and I also do concur that the middle of season 3 was a little bit more sloggy than I would have liked it to be. It was not sloppily presented. It was just like you said, it dragged a bit. There was a little too much emphasis on things that I feel like they could have cleared up kind of quicker, and they didn't for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Um but I will also say that by the time that I got to the end of season 3, I feel like I have learned more about this place than I have learned any at any time previously. And I have so many new spawning ideas about what is really happening here. And none of that could have taken place without sort of everything that happened inside of season 3. So while it was a little bit draggy, everything that happened in season 3 feels incredibly important. Whereas some things in season 1 and season 2 didn't feel as important. It just, yes, you needed to give us background information and build characters and, make us confused a little bit. But season 3 was a nice, solid set. That, at least for me, it was. I want to ask this too, because I felt like one of the things that really holds this together is, first of all, Boyd. I mean, obviously, um, but Boyd's interactions with Father Kotri, I still don't quite know what's going on with that, but I'm so happy. I wasn't happy at first. At first, I was like, why would they do this? This doesn't, it felt weird. But in season 3, it really mattered. Like, having the voice of someone to speak to Boyd matters so much. And I was wondering how you felt about it. Because I don't remember what you felt about Father Kotri being introduced as sort of like this, almost as like, a quote unquote NPC character. Um, I'm starting to feel like maybe that's
like
not the
dead
case.
Obi-Wan, like
Yeah,
dead Obi-Wan, the hologram,
exactly.
you know.
Yes, yes.
Um, okay, I think personally they realized they made a big mistake in killing his character off because I felt like the show needed him. I felt like the show needed his character. Like he was a good person to have in the mix, and what he brought to the show, I thought was very good. So I think they found a way to still kind of give the show the boost that you get from Father Kotri. So I think I mean, that's what I feel. I would, I would love for the writers to be honest about that. If if they felt like that was they may have made a mistake with killing that character off. But you know what? I mean, I feel like it's kind of a cheat to keep the character in there. But you know what? It is what it is. I'm glad that he's there because I think he's a phenomenal. First of all, the actor is very great at the part, but then also his character was really good. So, um, you know, uh, so you know, but I don't know if I love it when Father Kotri comes on. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know that I'm not. I don't know if I'm like oh cool, it's Father Kotri. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I think maybe at first it was good to see him back, but I don't know how I feel about it going forward.
Okay, let me clarify, just so that what I'm saying is maybe a
Hmm.
little bit more clear. Because I'm not saying that I enjoy Father Kotri as the character, although I did when Father Kotri was alive. I'm saying that Boyd needs. This is heading into trope territory, of course, but Boyd
Hmm.
needs something that is of the world that he can interact with that isn't the people who are around him. And he's allowed to do that with Kotri. And we don't even know if that's real or not real, right? I mean, like, it could be real, but Father Kotri does not interact with any of the surroundings. He doesn't really, like, he never picks anything up that, we can see that, actually gets set back down or anything like that. So we don't know what's really happening. And nobody else sees Father Kotri. Um, Even when Boyd is interrupted by someone and Father Kotri was there and then he's not there. So it's a little, to me, it's a lot less uh obvious what he is than, let's say, like the boy in white, who has been seen by multiple people and who does seem to have some kind of clear narrative function. Father Kotri seems to have a something more like it's Boyd's not inner conscience, but some kind of voice that Boyd
Oh,
wants
to
to
me, it's
have,
clearly to me that's
right?
clearly what it is. It's
Okay, so
it.
you think that he's a hallucination?
Yeah, he's a definitely a hallucination. I don't think he's a negative force. I think he's definitely a positive force, but it's definitely it's part of his conscious, guilt due to what ended up happening with Father Khatri. Uh, so I do feel like that that's what it is. Whereas like you said, the some of the other apparitions or whatnot are different. So
Okay, so big giant spoiler tag here.
mhm,
I say that because I do want to talk about as the season progressed, of course, we learned a lot about what was happening or what might have been happening. I feel like we actually
mhm.
don't know, although we have a pretty good big clue going on. If the town is like a ghost graveyard, okay, where not only the creatures can basically come back, but also where the manifestation of different beings that have existed in the town can also come back. Does it not make sense that Father Khatri could be a part of that? And I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just wanted to sort of bring it up as a it does seem to me like
I
we might be misinterpreting what Father Khatri's purpose is.
I feel I'm willing to bet money that it is what we think it is.
Yeah?
I'm pretty now look well, like now check it out. If it turns out not to be, then I'm gonna look like a fool. But but I'm willing. I think it's pretty clear that it's his conscious. But then again, though, they could change their intent with it, in the next season. Like it could have, so you never know, right, with the writers. But I think, I believe that. I think if you even ask them, I think if you ask them, they would probably tell you that it's his conscience. So, but wasn't there a Stephen King novel that he made into a movie called "Sometimes They Come Back"?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I thought so. When you said it, I don't know
Well,
why.
it's definitely a book.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
was
there
I
was a
don't know if it was
I
made
think there
into a
was like a
movie.
mini series or something too,
Okay.
but I didn't see it. I just remember the title. I didn't read it or see it, so I don't even know what it's about.
It it's a fairly common, it definitely is a very common trope, but I would liken this to okay, so in the town we have a lot of people that are experiencing some really crazy things, including people that hear bugs like the cicadas or the bees or whatever. Um and I kind of think that it's like that. It's like it's there for them, but it's not there for anybody else.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
I would like to know what's the guy that sees the cicadas?
Um, it what is his name? His name is he's the blonde guy.
Yeah,
Um,
which I was so glad he didn't die because I felt like the
Me
show needed
too.
they needed him. He brings a wild card that they didn't have. I felt like, but okay, I wonder is this character must be
It'll
from the
come back to
DMV
me.
area because that's the cicadas like especially DC they they hibernate I think for what some crazy amount of years 15 years or some craziness and then all of a sudden they're just all over the place. The cicadas are all over the place. So uh I wonder if it that's something the character is um singing or whatever.
And I think that there's something in that. There is something that's
That's
cyclical,
something
and
back home.
I think that that's what we're supposed to take away from the story now, is that this is a cycle and it's been playing out a lot longer than we think that it has, or that we had any indication that it has. It's been playing out for a long long time, which makes everything that's happening now feel like it is like they're in the cradle of inevitability, and that can I think that adds a nice hopeless horror veneer to the top of everything else that's going on. Nathan, right? Isn't his name Nathan?
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go.
yeah.
Okay.
It's funny. I don't like him like as a human being, but I like him as a character. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I feel like I don't. I honestly, I feel like he's a kind of character who is written to be unlikable, and yet he plays such a pivotal role in our cast of characters, because we need some of those characters to kind of break off and do the things that are not just unexpected, but also kind of not really nice.
Right.
Because it feels like a lot of the other characters are very nice, or at least, are led down the path of being very nice.
And it would
Well,
have been a it would have been a
let's
big
let's jump a little bit and let's talk about, um because I feel like if we go sort of in sequential order, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But let's talk a little bit about what happened at the very beginning of the season. And just can you do me a favor and just sort of like set the stage for what basically happened, as we kind of come back into the town, and what we sort of, well, let me say this: what happened, but then what did you expect was going to happen?
You know, uh, that's interesting. One thing I did enjoy was that it did subvert my expectations because
Mm, mine too.
I didn't think that the show was ready to give us as much as it did give us in
Hmm.
the season. J- You know what I'm saying? So so I'm glad that the show did that. Sorry about that. Two things at once. Please forgive me. Um, but one thing that I thought that that I was expecting was it was going to be a lot of not really getting any answers or things that might or more questions instead of answers, which you did get kind of that. But I thought the thing that was so solid about the episode was you had the crisis that was going on, in the town.
Hmm.
Like sometimes it can feel like it doesn't matter. Like
Right.
it's just to fulfill that episode. Whereas I felt like the crisis in the town really informed you on Boyd. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Like it wasn't just to put something in there for the story to go on. It felt like to me that really was like a catalyst to how Boyd, what ultimately ends up happening with the sad ending. When I forgot what her name is, the mother, gets killed. So um, we have a couple people in the chat. Hey, how y'all doing? Um, so yeah, I just think that it was quite a well done, and like I said, because a lot of times things are happening in the
Hmm.
town and you're like, okay, it's gonna get resolved and everything, but this it felt more weightier in there. And then you also had the crisis, I believe it started in that episode, of the food, um the lack of food,
Right.
which to me, it didn't really, I mean, they never really fully explained why they have such an abundance of supplies. I felt like it really needed to happen because it just didn't make sense on any level why they were so stocked up. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And they raised the stakes in a way that I thought was so good. And then, I mean, just the way they set it up was just the way they set up the whole, herding the cattle and all of that stuff, and just was, oh man, it was great. It was really good.
I was definitely surprised that Tianchen died. I mean, like,
Hmm.
there's no other way to kind of feel, I don't think, about that. But I was surprised from the beginning because I felt like she was so central to so many things. I do understand
Hmm.
now, after seeing the entire season, where that was going and why that became pivotal, both from the food standpoint but also from just the what tips Boyd over the edge. And it's not one individual thing, it's a series, it's a progression of things that turns him into somebody that would take a hammer to somebody else's hand. Like it,
Mhm.
you can feel that the stakes were continually rising based off of that very first episode. um
Oh yeah, how boy becomes Jack Bauer.
yeah, yeah. And also I have to correct myself. It's not Nathan. Nathan was what's her name's brother. It's Randall. His name is Randall.
Randall,
I
yeah.
don't know why I confused the two of them, but I did. Okay. So I, I'll tell you, this was my expectation. My expectation was we were going to find out whether or not um, Tabitha leaving the town meant something bigger than it did. And I fully expected that there was going to be a twist. I did not see the twist coming that ended up playing out. And the reason I think that I didn't see it coming is because the moment that Victor's dad started to talk about his wife and the fact that she had been drawing paintings from this place and experiencing something that was obviously the kin to where they were, I sort of thought that maybe like they had been there before or something along those lines. When it turns out truly that there is, again, to use the word inevitability, there's an inevitability to what happens with these people getting pulled into the town. It means that every single person in the town has some kind of role, some kind of function. It's not just Jade and Tabitha that matter. It's everybody in this town actually played some kind of role in the past as they have been, and it's just continuing forward in these cycles. And the moment that the people in the town understand that, it's going to be overwhelming and, really dark.
Mhm.
But there's something, but I didn't, I guess I didn't expect uh some of the more obvious signs. Like, I brushed them off and thought, no, that can't possibly be. And then when they began to manifest, I felt like I had been not duped, but like, oh my god, why didn't I see that coming? And that really does speak to how well this thing is written. I mean, it is really well written in the sense that everything, if you go backwards, makes sense. If you watch season 1, which we watched season 1 and season 2 before season 3 started, and if you watch season 1 and season 2 and then go all the way through season 3, there are things in season 3 that allude back to season 1 and season 2 which are small, but definitely you can tell somebody's writer's storyboard has a million points to it because they're definitely mentioned. And
Can
I loved that.
can I say something just overall about the show?
Yeah.
Um, is and I don't know how I feel about this, but I feel like season one was scarier
Mm,
because it just felt like you had no chance if you were outside, and
right.
it just felt like it just meant you were gonna die. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you had, and that fear of somebody, when somebody's outside and you're like, oh my god, they're not gonna make it. It kind of feels like now you probably can make it. You could bob and weave and then like, I don't
Well,
feel the same feeling like if I'm outside, I'm screwed. Like, I'm just not gonna,
okay,
and
well, they
that's
did tell
different.
you that though. They did tell
Uh-huh.
you that. They told you
Hmm.
that in the very first season when they said before they found the talismans,
Talisman, yeah.
people were just outside in the woods
They
at
did
night.
tell
And
you that.
sure, people died, but lots of people did actually make it through.
Hmm. I
That
know they did tell you that, but
But the stakes did
You
feel
still
higher.
felt like you
Yeah.
just, but because all you saw visually was you were out there, you were screwed, and it was oh, and then it kind of this season it didn't when people were outside, especially if they were consequential to the storyline, you didn't have that feeling like they're definitely not going to make it. Whereas in the first season,
Right.
you felt like people weren't going to make it. So, I mean, which is, but I guess they had to do that because, they're going to have storylines where, just to shake it up, just where people are out there, but they make it and some don't make it. So I'm cool with that. But I feel like the show isn't as scary the last season as maybe the first two seasons. Did you feel that way? That it made or maybe that's on purpose, maybe to make it have a broader appeal? Because
I
it seemed like what do you call the things outside?
I don't know. What do we call them? They just call them, don't they just call them the creatures?
Yeah, like I don't know, like you know how like
I mean,
in
there's Smiley.
The Walking
Smiley
Dead,
has a
they're like
thing.
the walkers or whatever. I guess there's no uh I don't know what you would call them, but the creatures outside, they don't have the fear thing I think as they did. What's the only time when it's scary to me now is when someone's out there who has no idea what they're up against. Like when probably the most like oh my god moment was when the ambulance pulls up and then
Hmm.
and you knew that the EMTs had no idea what they were going. You know what I'm saying? And the police officer lady didn't
Right.
know what they were up against. So therefore they're like they just thought they were like regular people and then like oh man, they're about to like a lamb to the slaughter. That to me makes it when you bring back the kind of scary factor. But like do you feel like and it seems like they've toned down to a certain degree some of the gore and scary. Do you feel like that?
I think it's a little bit at this point in the storytelling. It
And I'm
seems to
okay
me
with
like it's a little bit more pointed. That is, what happens has more to do with the centralized story instead of being the general tone and feel that they were looking to, give us. So the beginning definitely was more scary, partly because fear is always born from both the unknown and the known cast together. So when you don't know what something is, it is always infinitely more scary. But it can become knowing something can be super scary if you know that what you are afraid of is worthy of your fear.
right.
So there are parts of the story that I think are becoming more pinpoint specific in their fear generating aspect, where and then you can tell that some members of the town
Hmm.
are sort of like the Star Trek red shirts, right? You can
Hmm.
kind of see that they are being set up to die, or that they're being set up to, kind of be like lambs to the slaughter or whatever. Um, but I have to say that after the end of season 3, we had a major character death, and I did not see that coming at all.
Wait a minute. I did call it.
Did you? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, you know
you
what you did.
remember?
You know what you did. You're
I felt
right.
like
Yeah,
he was gonna die.
yep, yep, you're right. I do remember that now.
Yeah, it just felt like it was going that way.
I thought it was going to be Jade, to be honest.
I like
I thought
Jade. I'm
Jade
glad
was
it
going to
wasn't
die.
Jade. You know what? I hope the actor's not listening, and it's no shade on him, but I don't miss him. Like I don't miss that character. He was annoying, especially in this last season. The
They really
actor was
built him up to
fantastic.
be, yeah,
Yeah,
they built him up to be, I think, they gave him a very, what's a good word for this? They made him far more annoying is one word, but I think there's more to it. It's more nuanced than that. They built him up to be almost a foil for both Tabitha and the kids. And I I was really, I was trying to understand what was happening. Why is he so much more antagonistic toward everyone? And then when he ultimately fell at the end of the season, it did sort of seem like, oh, that's why. So it did kind of make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of him as one of the leads on the show. You know,
Yeah, me too.
he always felt like he was a lead, but you know, because I guess it was because of the way that they were introduced. They were like the first to be introduced.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, I don't miss his character. I'm okay with his character not being on the show no more. So
I I still think Marielle
uh-huh.
is uh you definitely kind of red shirt-ish.
Mhm.
Um and I also think that um who's the other one? Um there's another one that I'm trying to remember. But I can't remember. Oh, not no, not Christy. I'm trying to remember. There's another one. It'll come to me.
Mhm.
But I have a feeling that we're not done with that yet. Like we haven't quite gotten to the end of which characters are expendable and which characters are not.
I could tell you who I wouldn't mind not being there. You know, and like I said, it's never about the actual actor.
Oh no, we're
Most,
definitely talking about the story.
yeah, yeah, because I don't want you know I don't want it to be like oh, but, you know, like you want me off the you know. I mean, I want everybody to have work.
Listen, if the writers are going to write you off the show, I don't think you really have much to say about it. Sorry.
Right. Now, okay, can I just kind of quickly go over who
Yeah.
I'm gonna go more so who I really am very much interested in. Maybe that's a good thing for me to say. Like the characters I like the most.
Okay.
I like Boyd, of course. I
Okay.
think Boyd is a really good um character. Tabitha, definitely, she's very important. I like Jade as well. I think that Jade is a great character, and you know I'm always interested in his storyline. Um, Donna, I really like Donna. At first, I didn't know if I was gonna like Donna. You know,
Yeah, I've gone back and forth about Donna.
yeah, but you know what? I think she's really. They do a good job. I'm not gonna mention people who are already deceased on the show. Uh, Victor, of course. Uh, I like Victor, and then Kenny. Those are my favorite characters on the show. I hate to say it, don't beat me up. I don't care about Ellis and Fatima.
Mm,
Like I think in the first season, I thought they were really like gonna do something, you know, with their characters, and it's not them. I think the actors are fine. It's just I just don't like their storylines, to be honest with you.
I honestly feel like the Ellis and Fatima story are almost sort of like a supporting role for Boyd. Like this is what gives Boyd skin in the game. If they
Hmm.
didn't exist, I don't know if Boyd would have such compelling responses to the things that are happening in the town.
Yeah, I think they kind of, like I said, the first season they were interesting, and then they had this little thing with um uh the daughter. Where
Julie?
remember, yeah, Julie. At first, there was a moment where I'm like, are they gonna have like some kind of threesome? You know, like is that what where we're going? You know. But it was like, okay, this is different. This is not definitely not what I expected. But yeah, I I I don't really care. Like sometimes when they go to their story, I don't even care. Even when the whole thing with the miss when Fatima was missing,
Hmm.
I was just kind of like, even though it was a very important storyline, it was just like, okay, let's just get through this. So, but those are the ones that I really like. So,
One of the things that happens, I think, in From fairly continually is that because the characters are not safe
Hmm.
in any way, except probably Boyd, who I think is probably safe until maybe the end. I don't know. I
Better
don't
be.
know now. See,
Take
now
your
I'm a
boy
little bit
I riot.
now I'm a little bit nervous because we have basically introduced Tabitha and Jade as being sort of like the Romulus and Remus of the founding of the town,
I
and it's
know.
sort of making me like a little bit nervous. But the
And
other
by the way,
person,
that's a great Romulus and Remus. That's funny. That's funny.
um, yeah, well, I'm ancient Rome kind of stupid
Yeah.
person, but anyway. But you know who the other person who I think is sort of safe is Sarah, because
Mhm.
Sarah keeps popping up in everybody's story, and it
And she
just
should
feels
be
like,
dead by the. I
yeah,
mean, I'm just saying
she
based
should.
on, yeah, with her stuff. Yeah.
So she definitely seems to have a get out of jail free card, which yeah, is an interesting. I don't think I ever would have thought that in the beginning, but yeah. I will say that the other one who I feel like maybe is safe but not 100% safe is Christy. And that's because, kind of like, going back to the Star Trek reference with the red shirts, I feel like you need a Dr. McCoy. You need to have
Hmm.
somebody who has some medical experience. Otherwise, a lot of stuff that happens in the town starts
You talking
to fall
about?
apart
You
and
mean
doesn't make
Bear
sense.
Trap Christie?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then
But
again,
I
her
don't
girlfriend is a
see, I
isn't
don't
she
think
a
she's
doctor too?
safe. I don't think
She's a
she's safe,
doctor too.
though.
They could go girlfriend and then kill off Christy.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like she's not as
Because we
likable, and
got
I
more of her
don't
as the
know.
doctor in this third season than we did Christy though.
We definitely did. In fact, Christy was the patient in part of the season
Hmm.
because she stepped into the trap, right? The other
Hmm.
one who I'm a little bit nervous for
Oh
is
wait,
Kenny.
wait, I'm sorry. Just as a side note,
Mhm.
I never ever want to see in anything a human being getting caught in a bear trap. That is just, you know how just okay, just the idea of getting your leg caught in a bear trap is
Mhm.
frightening for some crazy reason of mine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh my god, it's just ugh, it makes my leg hurt. Like I hated that when I saw it because it just made my leg hurt watching it. So I don't know. It's just I've always had this thing like because I've seen it in movies and stuff, and it's just like what a awful thing to happen is to happen. But anyway, I'm sorry. That's my
It,
tangent.
I completely agree, and I think in some ways that's what I was saying before about how they've lessened the amount of uh scary gore,
Hmm.
but they've sort of kept in the personal body horror. Like, there are still many things that could happen, like Randall getting part of his face torn off, and
Mm.
the bear trap thing, and then some other things that were sort of like, yeah, these are really scary things. Julie just sort of falling into nowhereville because she was in the middle of that place. Those kinds of things do sort of make me think that they moved the center from being overall scary horror about this place to, it's more personal now. It's way more
Mhm.
personal. um
Do you think, as a side note, do you think that we'll see a Julie Randall love connection?
I don't think
Because how
so,
is
just
Julie? How old is Julie supposed to be?
because I think she's
She's
supposed to be 16 or 17.
oh, I didn't. For some reason I thought she was older. Okay,
No,
hopefully we won't see that.
she's never learned how to drive yet.
Hmm.
Yeah, she's definitely still in that
Oh, I thought
in
she
that
was like a young adult. I didn't realize. I mean, the actress, I'm pretty sure is.
Yeah, I think the actress is much older,
Yeah,
but I think
but
she's
okay.
playing
Yeah, I didn't
somebody
realize
who's
that she was
younger.
playing someone that young. I thought she was a little older. Because it seemed like they were. She definitely has a crush on him, but he
Oh,
does. But
for sure.
he seems to not. He seems not to be the as a scumbag as he is. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would mess with you know a girl, a woman young. That young.
Yet oh my gosh, excuse me. And I think, partly his role is
Hmm.
to be the I can see him stepping in to be the role of the wizened, if you can even use that word, um m- bad influence mentor, because now Jim is going to be gone. And
Mhm.
who is going to step into that role for her? You can see that
Maybe
Randall
that's
will
why
totally
they
be that.
that's why they okay, I'm slow. That's why they put him because he was gonna teach her how to drive. So that
Right.
that's why they were setting up, putting him so that he could be like a father figure type, you know.
That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, okay. Can I okay, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, and maybe I'm grasping at straws, but do you feel like time doesn't move the same way in the town than
I
maybe
do.
outside?
I was actually
Okay.
going to talk about that.
Okay.
And the reason I was going to talk about it is because I was trying to get a feel for what, and I feel like this is a central point. So
Mhm.
forgive me for going back to it. But when Julie leaves the
Mhm.
town, we know that she calls her mother, and
Mhm.
her mother says, "Oh my God, you've been missing for so long." W- We don't know if that's actually true, because it is very possible that the influence we thought was on them is actually something far bigger than than we're seeing. But
Mhm.
if that is the case, then time is happening in a progressive stream outside of the town, but it's happening differently inside of the town.
Mm.
And I think that that is a very important part of all of this. We also know that time is definitely happening,
Mhm.
because Victor's dad, and however old Victor is, has aged significantly enough on the outside that when he comes back, he looks like Victor's dad. He looks
Mm.
old enough to be Victor's dad. But I think that inside of the town, I do think you're right. I think that there are some things that are a little bit, sorry to always keep mixing tropes, but they're timey-wimey.
Mm.
They don't exactly line up. And some of that, I think, is the introduction of both Julie and Boyd being in the well house.
Mhm.
And we understand that, oh, well, wait a minute. She was in the well house, but Boyd was clearly in the well house. She's the one that threw the rope into the well and allowed Boyd to escape. And remember, we were all wondering, how did the rope get in there if the guy was all chained up to the wall? It's because Julie was there. So time is not necessarily happening in a single continual stream here. It's obvious that there is some odd thing happening.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if you remember the whole thing about the trees moving.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's so many little details throughout the show that I feel like we're not going to get answers to everything. I feel like some things we're just not going to get the answers to. But um it makes you think, ponder, a lot of these things, which is great for a show to do that because you now are like trying to figure out what's what and what's not. But there's something I gotta talk to you about. I've seen some some theories and whatnot. And
Hmm.
do you feel like maybe and really in touch with the fan community, right? So do you feel like maybe people overanalyze the show?
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
they
So
see things.
yes.
Okay, all right. So it's not just me. All right.
So yes, and yet this is a fascinating question. I love this because we know that the people who created From
Hmm.
also were involved with Lost, okay?
Hmm.
And one of everybody's favorite armchair activities to do when Lost was being aired was to speculate on what every little thing, including grains of sand moving,
Right.
meant. Okay?
Right.
So I do think that that is something that happens here. And I think that there are plenty of red herrings. And I think there's lots of things that are explainable, but not yet. And
Hmm.
those kinds of things. However, I also think that this is part of the of a different type of show where the mystery box is so well contained that it really is that fans really like that
Hmm.
becomes part of the experience, questioning whether this means something or that means something and why it means something at all. So while I think that people definitely overanalyze everything, I also think that that is absolutely part of the fun of being involved in a community that wants to talk about this. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I've heard some things, and I'm like, okay, I think they're reaching. Like I can't think of nothing like right now, but where you're like, okay, I don't think that's even was meant to be something you're supposed to question. But it's just like you'll go crazy trying to figure out
But
what
but
you know.
but then at the same time, you have things happening like Smiley being reborn,
Right,
and and you're like, well, wait a minute, maybe that person really was onto something, because who could have possibly seen that coming?
right, right. And that
And
poor guy can't even smile anymore in public without creep people out. Or he's gonna have to come up with like another kind of smile, like because his regular smile is just you know
yeah, it's
just too
kind of like
creepy.
Joker's smile at this point.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Okay, let's on a like a bigger overview kind of a note. Let's talk about the things that happened in this season that we felt the strongest about, because I have a couple that surprised me. Like, I didn't think I was going to care, and all of a sudden I was like, "Oh my god, I actually really care about this." So what were some moments during this season that surprised you in terms of how much you actually cared about it, um where you didn't really think that you might?
I think the thing that surprised me the most, or I don't know if it was that it was surprising, but it was definitely interesting, was the introduction of the police officer lady. I'm so sorry, I can't think of her name. Um, because I figured they were his fodder, and
Mhm.
when she became, and she was included into the show, I thought that was pretty good. Because I think she adds something to the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she is the doubting Thomas
Right.
of, yes. I'm going to actually get into what that actually means in just a second. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I thought that was good. You know, a thing that I was disappointed in was I thought when Victor and his father finally would see each other, I thought it was gonna be. It was just kind of like okay, it wasn't what I mean. It wasn't as big of a thing that I would hope it had been.
Mhm.
Um, that um, I'll say a thing that was kind of a surprise is the son, Matthew's boy. Um,
Ethan.
he really felt like in the first season, 2 seasons, that he was going to have much more an impact. And I'll be honest with you, his season 3 was really weak to me. And so I'm starting to think, i- is he as important as maybe we felt like he was after the first season? No, is he? I mean, I assume he's supposed to be the Victor 2.0 or whatever. Um, but I don't know. How do you feel about that? About the Matthews boy in season 3? I felt like his season was kind of weak.
I okay. I have always believed that Ethan
Ethan, thank you,
is,
thank you.
yeah. I've always believed that Ethan is the Victor parallel in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
But and partly that's the boy in white. that just sort
Hmm.
of solidified that in my head. But I will say that I am starting to think more outside of the box with that. And based on the revelation that just happened at the end of the season, that Ethan and Julie together are going to be are going to like basically be like the victor. So whatever happens going forward, it would I feel like it's going to be those two that would basically have to like restart the town, or that the town will restart around them. I mean, my gut feeling says that by the time that we get to the end of this story, the town dies.
Right.
Not the creatures, but the town itself dies, and that just the same thing that happened when Victor was a kid is going to happen all over again. And there's a lot of indications that we are in cycles of things that are happening. But I am also a little bit, I feel kind of complicated about that, because I don't know if Boyd is a part of all of this, or whether he is the foil for all of this. That is he the one that's going to break the cycle, or was he just part of the cycle to begin
I
with?
hope so.
What do
I
you mean? Which one?
hope so.
You hope that
You
he's
know,
the
I mean,
foil?
I hope that he's not the foil. I hope he's the solution, not the
No,
you know.
well, that's what I meant though. The foil is the solution, because
Oh, okay, okay,
if he's not the foil, then he's actually just a part of the town like everybody else.
right.
And the part that makes me a little bit nervous about that is when you go back and you rewatch from and you learn about Boyd's story with his wife remembered the town.
Uh-huh.
And that's why she went crazy, because she remembered it. And
No,
she was like, it's all a dream. It wasn't a dream. She just remembered it. She remembered it the same way that Victor's mom did.
no. There's
And
something.
that's what drove her crazy. That's why she was shooting everybody.
There's something that we've talked about privately, but never on air, and I really feel like, and I think fans should be getting ready for this. I feel like this show is not going to end on a happy.
No, I don't think it is either. I think this is absolutely a horror story. And
Right.
horror does not end with everybody happily ever after. Horror ends with the continuation, either the perpetuation of violence, or the it always ends on a down note. So I think that that's completely true.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny, a show where they're all in prison, you
Mhm.
know, you're like, "Oh, okay, well, it's going to end with them getting out of prison." Or a show where they're on a deserted island, you're like, "Oh, well, it must end right with them getting off the island." In this case, they're stuck in the town.
Right.
I don't think that that's where we're headed to, is everybody goes home and everything is all happy.
No.
And
No.
I think a lot of people think that's where it's going.
I think the further justification for exactly the way that you feel right now
Uh-huh.
is the idea that because everything is happening in a cycle, even if everybody left, they would still come back. Even if everybody got to leave the town, guess what? They would still come back. They would come back as different people, but the town continues to pull them back. It's not about the town is some kind of special place that people just happen into. It's people are destined to end up in this town because this is the place they belong.
Mhm.
And that's a crazy idea. That's actually a really crazy idea. It also kind of plays into a bit of interesting reincarnation, which is like, yeah, you don't get a lot of that. So that's also pretty it's obvious that these people have lived lives far beyond what they're experiencing now or even experienced that they can remember.
Mm.
They were definitely other people. That's
Uh,
that's big. That's huge.
yeah, no, it's very huge. Yeah.
And whoever is called into the town, they seem to serve some kind of either sacrificial service or, some kind of there's a purpose behind why they're there. Yeah, there's the wolves and there's the lambs. It's
Yep.
it's pretty fascinating when you think about it. The question that I would like to know, which obviously we're not going to know for a while, is one, what is pulling them back to the town? And two, why are they being pulled back to the town? Because at the moment, we don't know either of those questions. We
Hmm.
just know that they are, but we have zero understanding as to why the children are. Why is it that they still exist there? We know that there was the promise made for immortality for the undead, the creatures of the night, but we don't understand at all what purpose pulling everybody back into the town serves unless it has something to do with the kids. In other words, like they are somehow pulling people into the town somehow. I don't know. I don't know. Like I have so many different kind of speculative ideas, but I feel like that the speculation is so wild at this point that I just don't have any idea.
Right.
Let me ask you. I know we're going to kind of run over a little bit, but let me ask you a quick question about how you felt about Donna this season, because I feel like the character Donna didn't just play like a central role. I felt like Donna just came into her own in this season.
Yeah, I liked her a lot in this past season. I might have liked her the most that I liked her. Um, than the first two seasons in this season, and I just felt like they did her right. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah,
and and I thought the whole thing where they basically explain why you can't just go in that tree and leave by having her. I guess that was her husband, right?
yeah. Well, it wasn't her husband. No,
Her boyfriend.
in real life that was her husband.
Yeah, in real life that was her husband, but on the show was that her
No,
boyfriend?
no, it wasn't her boyfriend. It was just somebody that lived at Colony House.
Oh, okay. I thought they had a thing because she, um, but anyway, by having him stuck in that tree, I mean, sorry, stuck
No,
in
in the pool.
the pool. Yeah,
In the pool, yeah.
I thought, which was very creepy, by the way. That whole thing was creepy as heck. But uh, I just thought that was good, and I also liked her a lot in that episode. And I liked the fact that I liked how she handles Boyd at times when Boyd needs to be slapped a little bit. She
Right.
does it very well, and I think this season, like, because sometimes I would be more like, because I like Boyd, I would be like, man, don't be talking to Boyd like that, but this season I
Right.
felt like he really needed her to do that, so
To
yeah.
me, Donna was such a rock. Um,
Mhm.
just the most steady of characters, unwavering, not necessarily like, that she wasn't emotional, but she was so unwavering in her ability to stand back up, get going again. I mean, when what's his name ends up in the pool wall, she's out there like almost immediately breaking it back up again. I mean, that takes some serious fortitude. That is not, I don't think I could do that.
No.
And it just is such a she's such a well-written character. I really, really, really respect that character a lot. But I also really respected Donna this season for being the person who kind of threads the needle between what's happening that is that people need to react to and the things that people don't need to react to,
Mm.
where I feel like the town people just they look to Donna for sure for some kind of hey, is this true? As much as they look to Boyd for, hey, is this you're sort of like the law and order person. Donna is like the moral equivalent of what Father Kotri was, which
Hmm.
is we trust you over anybody. And at this point, I think people actually trust Donna over Boyd,
Yeah, he's
which
losing
is
his ground.
right, which is crazy. That is so crazy. But you can really see that whatever the upcoming season is going to bring us, it's definitely going to bring us more of that chaos. And I don't know. I don't know where everybody's going to fit in. It's
I
going
think
to be nice.
they're gonna lose a lot more respect for him. Maybe even not. I think they may even do it where he loses his spot, and then what I think is going to end up happening is he's going to regain it through some act of
Heroism.
yeah, and then people are gonna he's going to remind people why he had that spot in the first place.
That does seem like a really good possibility.
Hmm.
I also am I'm concerned, I should say, maybe is the best way to say it, for what is to come for both Kenny and Elgis, because or not I'm sorry, not Elgis. Well, yes, Elgis too, but also Ellis.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if they again, I'm concerned for
Yeah,
the overall character
yeah.
arc.
I don't think Kenny is going to end up making it.
I don't think so either. It doesn't he doesn't feel like he's got I don't know, I guess things could change, but he doesn't feel like he's got the same importance to things that I thought he was going to have in the beginning. And part of that is just all of his family dying too. I mean,
Hmm.
basically
Yeah, it's like,
everybody is
dang,
dead.
who's left?
And yet for him, he's all alone now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's nobody left. Let me. I also wanted to just sort of touch just a teensy bit on what you think about the big reveal at the end, but also what that might mean for how we are viewing the overall story. Like,
Hmm.
how did you feel about what they discover or and how they discover it?
Um. Hmm. I.
So
You
wait,
know.
wait, 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 wait.
Uh,
Let me preface this by saying that what happened. Sorry, I sometimes I forget that we're not just having a conversation, you and I, and that we're actually doing a podcast. So
right.
what happens is Jade and Tabitha find out
Hmm.
that they were originally the parents of the children that died,
Hmm.
the children that they are seeing in the town, and they come to this sort of understanding that when the children died, something really catastrophic happened. And then we also find out after that, or maybe even before that, I can't remember, that one of the compacts of the children dying was they made a compact with these creatures that as long as well, I shouldn't say as long as they made a compact with the creatures that if the children died, that they could have this kind of eternal life.
Right.
And so they can continually be reborn, which is what we saw with Smiley. So I'm sorry, now go ahead. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew
Right. Right.
exactly what happened.
Um. I. I did. I mean, I thought it was. I thought it. I. I've been feeling like a lot of that was going to be the case, right? And I don't know, man. Like, part of me is like, okay, where the hell are we going from here? Like, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, because then you got the time travel aspect with Julie,
Right?
you know,
And Boyd.
yeah, and Boyd. And I know I don't want to sound like I'm wishy washy, but I sound I like it in some aspects, but time travel. When you start adding time travel to stuff, it's well, you know how time travel can be in popular, you know, it can be if you don't do it right.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of feel like this is where the show can either take off, right? Or this could be where the show could really have its downfall. You get what I'm saying?
I think I do. Yes.
And I know I'm taking my time because I've really thought about it. Like it was one of those things where I enjoyed the finale. I thought it was cool, but then I'm like kind of afraid for the future. You know what I'm saying? Like, will this will this will this be the show's downfall? I don't know. I mean, like what do you think?
Um
Because I'm kind of two minds with it.
okay. So I I hmm, it's also very tough for me because I think in a similar way to you where this could be amazing or this could be where everything unravels.
Right. See?
And I'm not in a position to be in the writer's room or even feel like I have enough information, even based on all of the stuff that they are throwing at us with, the excellent tropes and the wonderful foreshadowing, and, even now having 3 seasons under our belt. I still don't feel as if I am able to accurately predict what may or may not happen. And this is really, I have to say that this feels very rare for me because I'm usually really good at seeing, at least anticipating what may happen future wise on a lot of these types of series. But they're just doing this so well that it's just very mysterious. But okay, but here's the other thing, which I think is maybe um where I actually have like a ray of hope. Okay. If the children were ritually sacrificed
Uh-huh.
and the parents sacrificed those children so that they could basically live forever.
Right. Which is
It
makes them the most shittiest parents of all time. But go ahead.
Yeah, it 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 absolutely makes sense that the creatures need, let's just call them, a herd of useful human beings around them at all times. Because one, if one of them dies, they will need to find a way to impregnate so that they can be reborn. That's one. Two, it seems like they exist for fear. Like they get some kind of, let's just call it a, undead serotonin rush. And they really, really like it. So it makes sense that they need to have people around them all the time. What what is, to me, what is a little bit where we're like starting to veer off into, I don't quite understand what's happening, is if this was everyone's fate to begin with, I think I actually mentioned this before. If this was everybody's fate to begin with, why are we why is this continually happening? Why didn't it just happen once and now it can continually, like, why does it have to be that that the town also pulls back uh a Miranda, a Tabitha, a Jade, a Christopher? Why does it have to be that the town is pulling them back? That's what I'm confused about. The herd of human beings makes sense, but there's a lot more to this that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. And even when I think about it, like, okay, if they're some kind of, fairy creature, which is what I really thought when I was seeing the stones, like that's absolute fairy trope. um there's still too many questions where I just don't quite understand it. um so and I do think you're right about time travel, but because time travel is only happening to a very select number of people, I don't feel like it's actually something that just anybody can do.
Right. Thank God for that.
Right. So that to me kind of gives me a little bit of like a peace of mind that we're not just in some kind of time travel loop or something. I don't think that's the case. I also don't think it's the case because clearly Tabitha, it basically is Miranda, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's the only reason that she was actually able, I think, to find Victor's dad. So there, all of that makes, to me, that just kind of makes it makes the story interesting. It also makes the story a little bit like, okay, I have too many questions to make up my mind about whether or not I think this is going to work really well or not work really well. I just don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
I also think that um there's a line that Julie says. She says, "I need to change the story." And I just want you to remember, because I feel like this is important, even though it doesn't seem like it has any relevance at all to the actual story. The story that Tabitha and Ethan are telling back and forth to each other um, in the very beginning, that seems to be one of the most important aspects of narratively understanding what's happening here. And when Julie realizes that the story needs to be changed, to me that gives me a little glimmer of hope that we're changing the story, like we actually might get some kind of foil to the story itself. That is, like, the story doesn't need to keep repeating itself because something needs to change, and only Julie can change it because she's the only one now who knows that she can time travel. Does that make sense? I think
Yeah,
it
it
might.
makes sense. Yeah.
um but the sad thing is, uh well, I shouldn't say the sad thing. The big thing is that the bigger puzzle of what's happening in From it's kind of like, when you do a puzzle on your table, and you put together like the center of the puzzle, but you haven't been able to figure out how to get all the edges together.
Hmm.
You still don't know where the puzzle is going to go from that point forward. So until we get all the edges together, it's really difficult for me to tell what my, and the way that they're telling the story is not by putting it together from the edges out or the edges in. We're getting the story from the inside out. And so that is making it even more confusing because none of us know where the boundaries of the story are. And I do actually think that there is something kind of happening there. I would like to know, and I'd love to know what you thought. Who do you think the man in yellow was?
You know, I think he must. I don't want to. I don't think he was. At first, I was gonna say maybe he was the whoever is. I don't think he's the person that's in charge necessarily, but I think that he's obviously. one of the most key figures into what's going on. And I think we're gonna find out that his us meeting him
Hmm.
is is really huge, you know, like beyond just, you know, what I mean, obviously it's a huge thing, but I mean, I think we're going to find out that he's the key to a lot of what's going on. He's I think he's what we've been wanting, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so this is like almost like the age of enlightenment for you know, whatever that, you know, we're gonna get out of this character eventually.
I feel like there's two warring factions in From. Part of one warring faction is uh the children themselves, but then there's also the boy in white and some other interesting things that have been happening, things that
Hmm.
seem coincidental, which maybe are not coincidental. But then there's the other side, which are these ideas of, especially for the man in yellow, but also for some of the creatures. It is it is quite clear that when he tells Jim, um, your wife shouldn't have dug those holes or shouldn't have dug that hole,
Hmm.
that this is like this is personal to him. There's I don't know, there's something oddly specific about him telling Jim that, knowing Jim was going to die. There's something super specific about that, and it feels very like he's the counterbalance to the boy in white.
Hmm.
That's, I
Yeah.
mean, that's personally what I
He's the
think.
guy that the boy in white is maybe more afraid of or something.
Yeah, and maybe it's this man in yellow person who is like the sort of the overarching person in control of everything else. And maybe that's sort of one aspect of the world that we just don't understand.
Hmm.
Um, I I I absolutely think that there is something bigger going on there, than just, they cracked the code and they played the song, and that was like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that because now they remember. I don't think that was it. I think there's something that goes way back, that Jim offended them somehow, or maybe Tabitha offended them somehow, but
Hmm.
she offended them in a way that was so personal that now they're reacting in a way that is so personal, if that makes sense. Um, I'm trying to remember what the other thing was. Oh, I know. Okay, here's my question. Do you think Boyd has been to the town before?
No.
No, you think Boyd has is like one of those, like he's the chosen one?
Yeah, I think yeah, because he's clearly the straw that shares the drink, you know,
Hmm.
in the show. So yeah, I feel like he's no, I don't feel like yeah.
So you feel like he's sort of like new, but if that's true, just I'm just throwing this out there. If it's true that Boyd hasn't been to the town before, do you think that what okay, let me put it to you this way. What would be the purpose of keeping Boyd alive if he hasn't been to the town before and he didn't play some central role?
I think that he's like one of the pawns in the game. I hope that he's more than that, but I just feel like his function is to be um I really hope that it is more than that, but like his function is to be one of the you know, the a cog in the wheel of what's going on,
Huh.
you know.
Okay.
So but I don't want him to be just. I'm afraid that because I want him to actually be the reason, part of the reason for the season. You know what I mean? But is
Ye-
that me just hoping that?
Well, I'll give you my take on it. I'll give you my take on
Hmm.
Boyd, at least up to season 3 here. Um, without going too far into season 1 and season 2, when we were sort of getting to know him a little bit more. In
Hmm.
this season, it it seems to me that Boyd is of central importance to the creatures. Whether that is they are trying to break him in a way that will make him decide that he's got to kill everybody in the town, or whether they are trying to convey something through him to everyone else. I don't know sort of like how to figure that part out, but I will say that I don't think his role in all of this is just one of passing uh information.
Hmm.
It's like he's not just the connective tissue that is sort of like, okay, well, here's our narrator or the person that we're going to see as a protagonist everything through. I feel like he's got some kind of big story purpose. And one of the other reasons I think he's got a big story purpose is because of what happened in the well house. And if you remember when he was having the conversation with the person that was tied up or chained up to the wall,
Hmm.
Boyd was somehow infected with something.
Right.
And whatever that is, that seems to give the creatures pause about killing him. I really think that that is one of the reasons that they don't kill him. Maybe Boyd becomes
Uh,
one of them. I don't know.
okay. That's
And
interesting.
maybe that's why they don't want to kill him. I mean, it's just so much speculation. I don't know. Um,
Hey, I never even thought about that. That maybe that's what.
like maybe they're grooming him.
Ah,
I mean, it's a big jump at this point. But the fact that he was willing to smash somebody's hand, knowing that he is like Mr. Law and Order, is it kind of jumped to me. Like, yeah, he's moving past the breaking point. So
does that
again,
make you think of
don't know.
him differently?
A little bit. A little bit, yeah. It makes me feel like he is less of the glue that's holding the whole town together and more like, oh wow, you know what? The person who was once the glue is ultimately going to be the town's demise.
One thing I hope doesn't happen is that in the end he like sacrifices himself so that you know because I kind of feel like that's what's
Oh,
you know like he's gonna sacrifice himself so that everybody can go to Valhalla. Like what I mean. Like I hope that's not where we're going, but I'm
see,
afraid.
yeah, I would not think I would suspect that it would be more the other way, which is Boyd is the reason that everybody dies because he just loses whatever grip on reality that he had. Maybe it's because his maybe because Ellis dies. I don't know, but whatever happens, it makes me think that like, okay, Boyd's role in this is it's central and it's pivotal, but I don't know which side of the central and pivotal it will take. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, we've got lots to look forward to in season 4. I do think that my favorite episode was the first episode, but my second favorite episode was definitely the last episode. So the in betweens from episode 1 to episode 10 were good, but they definitely did, I think, the best job in the first and the last episode.
Yeah. Which I mean, to be honest, uh, that's what you kind of want. If you got to pick,
Hmm.
you want you got to nail the first.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
I remember the police officer's name. It's Acosta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm old, and these things come back to me in little spurts.
Ah, you got
Um, Acosta is she's the police officer that arrives in the ambulance uh when Tabitha is coming back with Kenny's dad.
right.
That uh that whole situation was so crazy. Just the fact that they came back is just so crazy. Just absolutely crazy. Ugh, well, I hope that at some point between now and the time that season 4 airs, we can do a bit more of a deep dive on episode by episode, because one of my favorite, when I say favorite, I mean like it was interesting to me the way that they organized all of the information to tell us. Um, Information on time. I personally saw a bunch of shout outs to other movies and media in this season of From, which, like the Blair Witch Project, which I thought were amazing. Um, and I also was a huge fan of the reveal of what the numbers meant and how Jade ultimately wasn't the one to figure it out, but Jim was. And like,
Right.
there's a lot
And
of things in
then and then he went hasta la bye bye.
and then right, and then he dies. Yeah, there's some really interesting things that happened in this season, so I'm hoping that we can, go through some episodes and talk about them. But at least from an overview standpoint, I feel like we have come a very long way since the first season of From, and we really came a huge distance just from episode 1 to episode 10. The show has really matured. What are your kind of final thoughts?
Yeah, I really think that this last season was overall pretty good. I um I think that there were some highlights, there were some no really no low moments, but I would say that it was overall pretty good season. And it definitely kept me wanting to find out what's going forward with the program. So, and I think would you say that most fans, uh, uh, for the most part, fans enjoyed this last season?
Oh, definitely. And I have to say, although we didn't talk about it very much, one of the huge fan things to talk about was Victor and his hunt for Jasper and the understanding of, sort of like what that meant and why remembering has become such a central point in From. I mean, obviously now that the last episode has aired, we kind of know, but they really led up to it with the whole you have to remember. It obviously means more than we originally even thought. So some super fabulous storytelling going on, and I think that the people if there's, I don't know how many different Reddit threads that talk about From, and one of my favorite things to do is to go through and read all of the Reddit, kind of ideas, some theories, some, what people are paying attention to. And everybody has a different understanding of what's happening, and where people come together. You can definitely tell that, those are the central points. So there's also that.
Yeah, but no, I would definitely say that this last season was excellent, and I'm looking forward to what's coming up next. Which, hey, that's pretty good, because there's a lot of shows that you not always that's not always the case. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, although I don't have the stats in front of me, the ratings am that I looked at before showed me that there were more people who engaged with season 3 of From than engaged with season 1 as it was showing, or season 2. So that's a really good indication that the show has momentum, and it speaks well to it being renewed. It's also the only thing that MGM Epics has as sort of its original content, so that's another kind of, tick in its favor. It's not like they are, spreading themselves too thin or moving in directions that, maybe they have too much to kind of handle. It definitely seems like it's got a good chance of getting its full 5 seasons.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, it would be if they did do it, it would be so what a jerky thing that would be to like to at this point say, you know what, uh, I know you guys been watching this show, but we're not gonna we're not gonna do that. That
I,
would
I,
be
I will tell you I will tell you this. Season 3 on Rotten Tomatoes has a 100% perfect score with critics.
get out of here, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's practically unheard of. We don't get that. We just don't. It's just, it doesn't happen.
You,
So that's
I'm
big.
I'm very surprised to be honest with you, and it's not because of the quality of the show, but I'm just so surprised that people like the show as much as they do, um, like critics and fans, because you just get to a certain point sometimes when you really like something that you
Mhm.
just expect, man, the audience ain't gonna, I'm a like, sometimes you don't even want to watch a certain show because you are you just know that it's too sometimes a show could be too good where you're sitting there like, man, these stupid fans ain't gonna like it, and I'm just wasting my time. It's gonna get uh discontinued, and I'm gonna just be upset, you know.
Yeah. Well, so according to, and this is from this place that I go
From
to a lot called
hmm
seriesgraph.com.
hmm
Seriesgraph has a great graphic that talks about the from episodes based on viewers' response. And for season 3, we got a 8.4, which is about as high as you get. I mean,
hmm
not a lot gets higher than that. That was for the first episode, and then the last episode got an 8.1. In between that, there were a couple, like episode 7 only got a 5.5, which is not good. And that was probably the slowest, uh that was the slowest episode of the season. Everything else kind of falls into a fairly good range. So it is, like I said, it is definitely doing better than it did in season 1 or in season 2. Again, that's just, it's not a bad, it's not a bad way for a season to continue to move, because usually seasons start out really strong and then they kind of go downhill. So like, you start out with your strongest and then you're like, okay, you're always chasing it. But From seems to be a little bit different.
Hmm. Well, it's so funny because we set out to do this episode. We'll do an hour, and there was no way we were gonna just do an hour. I mean, it was too much ground to
There's
get on, and
so much to go over. 10
and I,
episodes is a lot.
yeah, and I'm glad we did because it definitely deserves the. But yeah, we're gonna have to
We'll have
do
to break it
something
down.
else. Yeah, we'll do something else, or maybe we could do even a watch of the season, like, and then do it. Maybe we can still do an episode by episode. Maybe because like we did with what was it, Witcher? We did like that
Yeah,
where
we did Witcher like
where
that.
we would
And
watch one and then we'll podcast one.
we've got so much time between now and 2026. I mean, we've got a full year to fill space.
Mhm.
So we
Well,
absolutely
I
can
thought
do
it
that.
would come out this year because from
No,
oh, so it's
no,
definitely not
they're
coming out this year. Okay.
no, they're going to start filming early this year, but they definitely will not be releasing it until probably 2026.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
So
they take their time.
I'd rather have them take their time and do this well
Right.
than rush through it, and then, we ultimately don't get that last season. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all for doing it well.
All right. Well,
All
uh,
right.
I guess we'll get to the end.
Wait,
Uh,
this is Kinte's way of saying, okay, it's time to wrap it up. So I will I will say, Kinte, thank you so much for joining the podcast and for being a part of this. You absolutely drive so much of this that goes forward. So thank you so much. And how can everybody find you on? Well, I know they can't find you on TikTok anymore. So how can we find you on social media?
you can find me on. Actually, I am on TikTok. I believe.
Not anymore because TikTok is banned. So good luck.
Oh, okay. You get me at Kente F. This shows you how much I keep up with this stuff. Uh, I can. You can get me at Kente F on Twitter, or I'm sorry, X now, and you can get me on Instagram at Kente Ferguson. And how can people get you?
Well, if TikTok doesn't get banned or it goes dark and then comes back on, then you can find me on TikTok at Movies and Meals. But any other place, you can find me at moviesandmeals.com. You can also find me pretty much on any social media with the hashtag moviesandmeals.com or movies and meals. I would like to just at the end of this just say one more thing about From, and that is I am really impressed with the cast altogether, the way that they work together, the way that they interact with each other. This has truly been an amazing experience, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. So, I am really hoping that we get lots and lots more out of the next season. And with that, I will say thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I hope to see you next time on our podcast for From.
Bye.